Hey guys, Rich Boy J here back with another video, and this is not a happy video. This is not a positive video. This is not a good video. It's not a video I would ever want to make, but it's a video I feel that I had to make. So let's just dive right into the story. So a few months ago, a YouTuber by the name of PRM Brick Studios, or Paul, came into the community seemingly out of nowhere. He made a name for himself through generous donations on live streams to myself and to a much greater extent, my friend Matt, also known as the Brick Wiz. Now, to this day, I still take any large donation with a bit of skepticism because it still is kind of surreal to me that there are people out there who are willing to contribute monetarily to my channel and really help my dreams come true, and that are having, I guess, a vested enough interest in what I'm doing to want to contribute in that way. And for the people who do it and who do it genuinely, I appreciate it. You guys mean the world to me. YouTube is not my first job. I work another actual job, and you guys make it much more possible for me to justifiably allocate time to this channel and make it a little bit more worth my while. So I just want to say right up front, thanks to everyone who does that. But basically, I started keeping constant contact with Paul, and I'd even go so far as to say I befriended him. He would often ask me about build advice for certain techniques because he wanted to actually start his own build series. And anyone who knows me knows I am all for people doing more build series on YouTube, specifically with LEGO Star Wars projects. That is what I do. That's what I love. It's what I love to see. So any chance I can get to help someone get that started or to make more of those happen in the community, I'm all in on it. Plus, it seemed like the least I could do for someone who was contributing so much to my channel. That was literally the least I could do, is help him find some pictures for some reference material, or help him come up with some building techniques. So fast forward to May 10th, I received some emails from PayPal stating that the donations that Paul sent via Streamlabs, so he does it via Streamlabs, but underlying it is a PayPal donation. So that is how it shows up on my side of things. It's a PayPal transaction specifically. So it said that he was disputing all the transactions. And let me guys explain to you exactly how a dispute works. So basically, you can either go through with it through PayPal directly, or if you could go through it with your credit card company, and you essentially say, I'm disputing these charges. Most times out of not, it's going to be because you would say that they were fraudulent in some way, like you didn't know, or you didn't knowingly make those transactions, and that's what Paul was saying. He didn't knowingly make the transactions. So I immediately gave him the benefit of the doubt. Like, it was a little confusing, but he had always made himself seem like he wasn't really savvy with computers. So I figured, let me just contact him, see what's going on. I don't want to get too anxious or do anything too drastic without at least figuring out what the heck is going on. So I log on to Facebook. I log on to Instagram to message him. That was really our primary means of communication. And I realized his Instagram is gone. Like, it's deleted. It's no longer there. When I log on to message him, it does, like, I can access the messages we sent because those will always be there. But, like, his page isn't there. And if I go to our messages, it doesn't say his name. It just says Instagrammer, which I guess is pretty standard for when you delete your Instagram account. You just have a generic account at that point. But at this point, I thought it was a little weird, but I didn't think too much into it because I knew he had been talking about wanting to change the name of his accounts and like his YouTube channel, because apparently someone else had the name PRM Brick Studio, so he was gonna get a new name. And I figured that he had just made that transition, and maybe like I hadn't added him yet. So at this point, I'm still assuming something weird is going on, but I'm still giving him the benefit of the doubt because, once again, like, this was someone that I talked to pretty consistently. It didn't really seem like him to be doing anything shady or just sketchy otherwise. So I went to go check his Facebook, and I realized there's no longer a Facebook there, which means he either deleted Facebook or he blocked me. At this point, I knew something was wrong because, I mean, people don't just delete all their social media, and especially their Facebook, out of the blue. So at this point, I knew, okay, something weird is going on. So I messaged Matt. He was the only other person I knew who was getting donations from Paul, and asked like Matt, like, hey dude, like, are you seeing that Paul's disputing the transactions? Is he doing this with you as well? And Matt is like, yeah, he started doing it with me. And Matt, of course, was freaking out. And at this point, I was just kind of like, well, I mean, worst case, we have plenty of evidence to show that like he knew he was making these transactions. We both corresponded with him through the whole thing. Matt literally had like a deal worked out where he would donate as part of being a sponsor of his channel, so that they had that worked out. And whenever Paul would donate to me, I would thank him on Instagram. He would respond like, oh, you know, no problem, you're welcome. All clear things that clearly show he knew exactly what he was doing and that it was him doing it. So to kind of go back on the way a dispute works, so after the dispute is filed, at that point, PayPal immediately puts a hold on the money. So if there's no money in your PayPal account, it will go into the negative. I typically don't keep money in my PayPal account. I almost always immediately cash it out to my bank account because that's where it's useful for me. So if the money's not in there, it will either take your money and put it on hold, however much the person is disputing, or your account will go into the negatives, which is what happened with both of us. So Matt actually had a decent amount of money in his account, and his even went negative after that. I had none in my PayPal account, so mine was obviously negative as well. And it was just a very inconvenient thing because obviously, you know, you can't make purchases with that account. You can't have donations. Well, you can't have donations go to the account, but you don't really want it to because you're not going to be able to access that money. Like it's in the negatives. There's nothing you can really do about it until the whole thing is resolved. So Matt and I are really just trying to figure out exactly like what could be his plan here. Like how could it possibly benefit him to donate the money and then take it back? Like after the fact, like after you've donated, maybe if you change your mind, I can understand like why you would want it back. But he seemed pretty enthusiastic about giving it in the first place. So we couldn't really wrap our mind around exactly what was going on here. But the only thing we could do at that point was to just send in the information that we had to PayPal as kind of our statement in the dispute. And then at that point, it's out of our hands. PayPal then makes their decision, or they basically will fight on your behalf with the financial institutions the buyer is basically filing the dispute with, and I guess try to make sure you get your money back. I'm still, to this day, not even exactly sure how that worked out. So, I mean, I was pretty confident in the disputes. Like I said, we had plenty of evidence to show that Paul knew exactly what he was doing. Matt was probably a little bit more concerned than I was. I think I'm generally optimistic about things until it really comes down to a situation where I know there's no way out. So I didn't want to let this situation kind of bear down on me and consume my life, because I knew this was probably going to be a lengthy process and it was going to take a while for us to figure out exactly what would happen with this money. So we just had to play the waiting game and see ultimately what would happen with PayPal and their decision. So we sent all our information in, and this part of the dispute process is really the worst part because they don't tell you this up front. They just ask you, you know, like, what is your response to the dispute? I think you have the option of just allowing the refund to go through, or you can essentially dispute the dispute and say, no, the services were already administered, or something to that effect. So that's basically what we ended up responding with. We sent them like the screenshots, even like the recordings of Paul, like literally on live streams, talking to us, talking to people on like the YouTube channel on live streams, making it very obvious that he knew what he was doing. The only thing that made this, I guess, maybe a little bit less compelling was the fact that he deleted his YouTube account, which meant that none of his messages were showing up in the chat. So maybe we would have had a better case if we could explicitly show where he's in the chat, like saying like, oh, I just donated, or, you know, us thanking him, and like he's clearly acknowledging that the donations are being made. I don't know, but even outside of that, I felt that we had an ample amount of evidence showing that he knew what he was doing from like the Instagram messages and things of that sort. It was just, other than some sort of written contract, I don't think that we could have had any better evidence than showing, yes, this guy clearly knew what he was doing. But the annoying part about this is, if PayPal decides like it's covered under the seller protection, which basically means they're willing to fight against the buyer's financial institution on your behalf, you automatically get charged $20. That's their flat fee. That is irrespective of what the actual dispute amount might be. So someone could donate $1 and then dispute it. And if I say, no, it was a donation, like they willingly gave me that money, PayPal will charge me $20 to go fight that dispute. And whether or not I win it or lose it, I'm still out $20. So in this case, with the large amount of money he donated, it made sense to still fight it. But if you guys ever go through the situation, know that if it's a small amount of money, it's almost not even worth your time to try and fight it, because PayPal's going to charge you $20 to dispute it anyways, regardless of what the amount is. So if it's not a high amount, then you're better off like not having to pay them a $20 and still risk not even getting the money back in the end. And that's per transaction. So Paul, I believe, made 4 different donations. And for each 4 of those donations, that was $20 more each of those that were charged to my account. So at this point, my account's like super negative. I think it ended up being like in the negative like $340 range. Which once again, like that sucked. Like that's a lot of money, contrary to my YouTube name. And I always had a feeling one day this might bite me on the butt. I am not rich. I'm not rich by any means. I feel like I work very hard to buy the parts to build Mox to keep this YouTube channel running, and like the money I get from YouTube is, I would say it's significant in my life. It does help make a difference and allow me to do these large scale projects. So when I'm all of a sudden in debt unexpectedly to PayPal, that complicates things and really kind of prevents me from moving forward with a lot of my plans for my channel. So you guys can see kind of the compromising position I'm being put in, especially for such a lengthy period of time, not knowing if I might ever see that money again. So this is where things get kind of weird, bizarre, and honestly a little bit scary. So while we're playing the waiting game, trying to wait and see if we're ever going to see this money again, I decided to go on Google and just like Google Paul's name. His full name is Paul R. Mullet. And I really just wanted to see if he was active anywhere else on the internet, and maybe get some clarity on why he was doing what he was doing, because still at this point we weren't really sure like what was his long-term plan. Like he clearly showed a great interest in wanting to like be active on YouTube, and I don't see how you would do something like that to two relatively well-known members of the community and still expect to have like a thriving channel and like not have that information put out there that you are essentially a scammer or you're fraudulent in some way. So I Googled his name, and what I found was, it's honestly weird talking about it because I don't even know how to explain the situation to people. But when I Googled his name, Paul R. Mullet, I found a concerning amount of articles for a white supremacist, also named Paul R. Mullet. At that point, I was freaked out. I was like, it's a weird coincidence, but I mean, there's no way that can be him. Like, I talked to this guy, I know this guy, like, he clearly did not seem like a white supremacist. But there was enough there to make me want to dig deeper to at least figure out if it could potentially be him. And the evidence just kept lining up too much. Like, I found articles on this guy, and I mean, they were from essentially the exact same city, in the exact same state. They had the exact same name. They were the same age. And it was mind-blowing. So I messaged Matt about it, and I'm like, dude, Google Paul's name and tell me the first thing you see. And he Googled it, and he just like, no way. Like, there's no way that's him. And I'm just like, dude, I think that might be him, because there's pictures of him as well. And Paul's relatively old, so, I mean, there's, like, older pictures of him with varying facial hairs and haircuts, but from what I could see, like the pictures looked close enough to make me at least a little bit skeptical as to whether or not this guy was this white supremacist that I was finding online in all these articles. So, with the help of a few really, really good friends who knew about the situation, we were able to find pretty convincing and conclusive evidence that Paul was indeed the man that we feared for him to be. Now, I don't want to dive too deeply into like his past, because if you guys want, you can go online, you can Google his name. It's not hard to find. All that information is out there. But what I will say is he had an extensive history of hate, crime, fraudulence, and we were experiencing firsthand just how much damage this one man can do. Now, in case you're wondering, we did add this information to our disputes because that was relevant. It wasn't just to show like, oh, like this guy's clearly a bad guy, but like he clearly has a history of fraudulence and, you know, doing things, whether it be like writing bad checks and stuff like that. Like clearly there are some precedents set that it's not out of the realm of possibilities from a person of his character to do something like this. So, I mean, we felt that with that information, we certainly had what we felt was an open and shut case. Like, I mean, the guy clearly knew what he was doing. He has a history of fraudulence. So, I mean, like, what more is there for us to prove to PayPal? Like, we were pretty confident in the case that we get built against him. Fast forward to this past Sunday, and we get some of our first emails back from PayPal. And they basically are just like, your buyer's financial institution ruled on in his behalf, so the money is gone. Like that's it. PayPal's suggestion was to contact the buyer. Clearly, that's not possible for us. He has deleted all of his social media. We literally have no way to contact him, even if we really wanted to. But I mean, it's sad. It's crazy that, for one, he's able to do this and get away with it, especially with the ample amount of evidence we had against him. But then it's also just so puzzling. Like was his goal from the front malicious? Was he intending on donating this money to us, getting us to spend it on our projects, and then disputing it so we'd end up in ridiculous amounts of debt? To this day, I still can't wrap my head around exactly what he was planning on doing from the beginning. And honestly, at this point, it really doesn't even matter, because everything I needed to know about Paul, I read about it. Like, it's pretty clear what kind of person he is. Before I knew him, he was that person. Before Matt knew him, he was that person. We just happened to kind of end up in the crossfire. And so we got some decisions to make. I think we both decided on making GoFundMes for both of our channels. We've really prided ourselves on not asking for money, never begging for donations or anything like that. We leave that up to you guys. We understand not everyone can donate, not everyone is in a position or has to. It's just something that if you have the means to, and you're kind enough to do something like that, we certainly appreciate it. So this is a way for anyone out there who would like to help us in this situation. You can do so via that means. I would love to just keep it as simple as just putting like my PayPal in the description, but given recent circumstances, I don't think that's the best idea. I really just don't want to deal with PayPal at all at this point. Obviously, I'm going to have to, but in the meantime, I'd rather kind of avoid that until it's absolutely necessary. So if anyone's out there who would like to help kind of reconcile this entire situation, I would certainly appreciate it. If you can't, that's fine too. I'm not going to hold it against anyone. At the end of the day, I'm going to try my hardest to make sure that this situation does not affect those people who come to my channel, who look for content. I don't want for someone's evil ways or evil decision to affect you guys. And so that just means we got to work a little bit harder and figure out a way to kind of course correct and make an otherwise awful situation a little bit better. So really, that's all I have to say about this. It's been kind of weighing on my mind for so long. I had kind of put it aside for a little while because the waiting to get a decision took so long. And I mean, I'm the type of person, I don't like to dwell on things or deliberate on things that I have no control over. Like once I send in my, I guess my response to the dispute, I don't want to sit there contemplating like, will they say yes? Will they say no? Because there's nothing I can do about it at that point. At that point, it's just I'm just waiting, and then once the decision comes in, I'll react accordingly. And just getting that email from them, basically saying like that's it, like there's nothing that can be done. It's words can't describe what that felt like. And I feel like due to just the nature of the story, how unprecedented it is, how bizarre it is, it might garner a bit of attention. I understand that. I just want for anyone watching this right now who's, you know, not familiar with my channel or not really familiar with how the live streams work and stuff like that, for the one Paul who really just screwed Matt and I over, there are a lot of great people in this community who have contributed, whether it be through donations, whether it be through watching videos, or literally just showing up to live streams and commenting and actively engaging and participating, who make my experience on YouTube great, who allow me to live a life that I probably only would have dreamed of beforehand. And I don't want for Paul's actions to kind of sour everyone's outlook on the rest of the community, because this community is clearly full of great people. I've always been a big proponent and advocate of the Lego and Lego MOT community in general, because it's a place that I feel anyone, regardless of what background you come from or what you might be interested in, can call home. And I'd like to keep it that way. So really, that's all I got for you guys today. Hopefully this kind of sheds a little bit of light on the situation. I know Matt's had to be a little bit vague about it. We both have been trying to coordinate exactly how we would respond to this, how would we would take this publicly. And the point of this is not to incite rage against Paul or anyone like that for that matter, but rather just to really show you guys what could potentially happen. I hope that it doesn't have to happen to anyone else, but for anyone out there who's, you know, doing live streams, who's getting donations and stuff like that, to just be aware that something like this could happen, and like there's literally nothing you can do about it. To this day, I'm still not sure what more evidence we could have provided that could have helped us actually win the disputes. So, like I said, I don't want this to be something that you look at and have it like deter you from wanting to do live streams or get donations and stuff like that. Like I said, most of the community is full of beautiful, great, lovely people. But it's important that we know and we are just cautious with people like Paul, and maybe do our research on them. Had I found out that stuff about him beforehand, I think things probably could have gone a different way. Like, it was all very clearly out there. If we searched his name, we could have found it literally at any point. But you live and you learn, and I don't want for this to take away too much from the community. I know it definitely has set me back. It has set Matt back even more. But I'm hopeful that we can bounce back from this. So, yeah, thank you guys for watching this, and I really don't even know what to say next.